Now, this is one book that took me back to my origin as a profound, bona fide, legit daughter of Igbo land. It was a bit nostalgic reading about the traditions, the culture, the belief of my people as Igbos far back during the time of my maybe forefathers. An Orchestra of Minorities, written by Chigozie Obioma. I would reckon that this man, the writer, will be a protege of the famous Chinua Achebe. He did a good work. I have read a whole lot of books with different narrators. I have read the one with the first person narrative, with the second person narrative, with the third person narrative. And all these narrators are humans. But this is the very first time I'm reading a book narrated by a supernatural being. A bit of a background to the story. So the story is about Chinonso Lisa, a young Nigerian Igbo man who is trashing through life with all life was throwing to him, trials after trials, and getting up after each of them, dusting himself and continuing with life. Eventually, he finds a love, a pure, innocent, true love. However, this love appears not to be compatible with reality because the situation surrounding this their love was a determinant factor to the longevity of the relationship they were building on this love. This love, which will be the bane of existence of Nonso, will eventually be his undoing and led him to commit what I'll call a love crime. One of the beliefs of the average Igbo man is that every individual comes into life with a unique supernatural being known as Chi. This Chi is tasked and laden from the supernatural world with the responsibility of guiding and guarding, inspiring, and when the need be, interceding for his or her host all through their lifetime. So, Nonso Olisa had a Chi like every other person, and his Chi was doing his duty by trying to intercede for him before the supreme being. This Chi, they have some supernatural elements to them. They have some supernatural powers. Their powers are not limitless like the ultimate creator, but they can move in between time, they can travel, they can interact with other Chi like themselves and also other supernatural beings, because according to this book, and I think it's true, the belief is that there are myriads of supernatural beings. Not all of them were Chi, but they were in existence in the cosmic world, of course. So each person is believed to have a Chi, and there's also believed to be a good and a bad Chi. Many people have the good Chi, but some people, through no fault of theirs, or maybe the fault of their ancestors way back, their forefathers, maybe they committed an evil or an abomination or a very terrible crime that had to be paid by their descendants. And so when their descendants are coming into life, they are coming with what we call a bad Chi. And how does this manifest? By ill fate, ill luck. They constantly meet bad luck in their endeavors, and they are said to be the people who are backwards or not meeting up to their mates in life. So those people are regarded as people who have a bad Chi. And people who are always excelling, who people see that they are always successful in whatever they do, are the ones who are said to have a good Chi. This Chi, like I said, they communicate with other Chis and other supernatural beings, right? They also communicate with the creator, the supreme being, in external circumstances, like the one Nonso eventually found himself in. So these are the times where they can communicate with this creator, like intervening or pleading the cause of their hosts. Nonso was managing his life, going through various ordeals and trials, and trying to come out stronger and stand on his feet and go about his life every day, just like every other person, until Ndali came into his life. Oh, beautiful Ndali. She was a soon-to-be pharmacist and the daughter of a very affluent Igbo man. Now, Chinonso was exactly the opposite. He was neither educated, nor did he have any parents, not to talk of affluence of any sort. And so, Ndali's parents, from the very first day that they met him, made it clear to him that he was so unworthy of their daughter, and they did not approve of the union. They so humiliated this young man and treated him with so much contempt that my heart went out to him. And so, in a quest to prove them wrong and show them that he was man enough, embarked on a journey that will ultimately be his ruin. The fact that the book was narrated by a supernatural being in itself already is unique. And then another unique thing was that this Chi always started his stories with chants and praises unto the supreme being before telling his story, because he was telling it in phases. You need to hear these praises, the heralding, the names that he was ascribing to this supreme being. I knew I was conversant with some of these names before I read the book, but boy, did I learn new ones. Yes, I did. You know, Africans are known for superlative form of praise, like in modern Christianity. And this book made me think that our method of praise as Africans must have come from the way our forefathers used to praise. That's why our praise can be so loud, it can be so superfluous, but we don't mind. We got that from our ancestors. This book made me believe so. You need to hear those encomiums that he poured out. I'm sure the supreme being would stop whatever he was doing at every point when Nonso's Chi started, just to hear those praises. Who doesn't love praises? However, when suspense began mounting, suspense intrigue in books, when it started heating up and mounting, I somehow became irritated with the praises, with the chants. I was like, please get to the meat of the matter. Leave the praises. And he wasn't just praising and calling the supreme being fantastic names. He was also throwing in parables, figures of speech, trying to explain things that happened in abstract. And so I was like, can you cut the chase? Let's get to the matter. What did Nonso do? Now let me talk a little bit about how I feel about the characters. And I will start with Chinonso, an orphaned poultry farmer, contented with his average life, as I perceived. But then it was as if he had more than his fair share of the vicissitudes of life. How could one person go through all the trials that he went through? Chinonso's character, I think he portrays the point that everyone has the tendency to show some acts of beast in them when stretched too far. Many people that we consider innocent, loving, kind, cannot hurt a fly, may be capable of abominable acts if circumstances present themselves. How much pill of misfortune could Chinonso swallow? What crime did he commit, or which of his ancestors' crime was he paying for in his life? That boy went through a lot. He had his own fair share. And, he was trying to get up one after the other. But just that one, the one when he embarked on that journey, that was just the last straw that broke Chinonso's back. No longer the camel. It was the last straw that broke Chinonso's back. Do I blame him? Well, he could have gone for therapy. He could have gone for therapy, but during his time, I'm not sure therapy was a thing, or therapy was not well known during his time. So, yes, he was wrong by what he did. But I don't know if him having been through a lot could exonerate him. I'm not sure. The next person I'm going to talk about is Ndali. Lovely Ndali. She was so warm, kind. Sometimes I'm imagined how she came from such a family with the way her parents and brother treated Nonso. Because I would think if she was in her brother's shoe, she may have actually been supportive of her sibling. But her brother made it clear that he wasn't supporting her too. In fact, he added more insult to injury. I would cut her some slack. I think some people will blame her for what happened to Nonso or what Nonso did, but I will cut her some slack because she also had been disappointed by men, not once, twice. The first time, she actually tried to kill herself when a man disappointed her. She was trying to jump off a bridge when Nonso came along. And that was the very first time they were knowing or seeing each other. So he came along, he tried and succeeded in getting her not to kill herself. And thereafter, maybe some months later or thereabout, they crossed paths again, and that was how their love story began. She showed that she loved Nonso. She tried to make her family understand, but they had made their decision. And she knew it was not going to be a walk in the park. She knew that, and she tried. She's that beautiful soul that just wanted to live her life, fell in love, and just wanted to be loved back. But unfortunately for her, her own love was caught up in the social stratification of class. The harshness of it caught up and entwined her own love and did not allow her love breathe. I was actually curious that if Ndali had married Nonso, would their pure and innocent and overwhelming love would be enough to bridge the gap of their differences in educational and economical background? Would it? Is love always enough? I would want to hear your answers to that. And now about Ndali's family members, her father, mother, and her brother. There was no need for the kind of contempt and humiliation they treated him with. I understand that they were being objective. They were seeing things that Ndali could not see because of love. They were trying to prevent problems coming out in future because of the differences in the educational and economical classes that both were in. I understood that. Like almost every parent, if not all, would have that worry and concern. And so the only thing that bothered me about them was how they treated Nonso. They could have made their point clear in other ways. Jamike. Jamike surprised me like twice. Like, I really did not understand his character. Even Nonso, it was obvious that Nonso also could not really control and fathom this young man who was supposed to be his friend, his helper, and his savior. Jamike was a student in Cyprus. He was the one who advised Chinonso on how to get educated, which will eventually lead him to marry the love of his life. How I wish Jamike was as true and loyal as Elochukwu, who I will talk about next. Maybe if he was being a good friend from the very first start, maybe things would not have turned out for Chinonso the way it eventually did. And that will lead me to talk about Elochukwu, like I earlier mentioned. He was the bosom friend of Chinonso. He was like, aside from Ndali, he was like the only good thing, or the only good thing a person. He was like the only good person around Chinonso, the only truly good person around Chinonso. He was of the same economical background as Chinonso, so he couldn't offer him money. He couldn't even help his educated status, but his loyalty was something to admire. He was that friend that stood with him through thick and thin. My thoughts on the book was Chinonso's Chinonso Chi portrayed himself as a good Chi. How he tried to ward off and warn his hosts, that's Nonso, about unfavorable things and unfavorable circumstances. How he tried to whisper stuff into his mind. These were things that this Chi could do that humans could not. But I continue to wonder, was he truly a good Chi? Could he have done more to help Chinonso? In as much as I understand that their powers are limited, like they could not force their host to do something. They could subtly whisper into their mind. They could even preempt what their host was about to do. They can try to paint a picture in the mind of their host to say, no, don't do this. But they did not have the power to make their hosts do what they wanted them to do. I understood that this was a limitation for Chinonso's Chi, but could he have done more? Was there a crime that Chinonso's forefathers committed that he was paying for in his life? Or was his Chi a bad Chi even from the first start that made him come across the various challenges that he was coming through? Because his was more than fair share of life's challenges. So these two things, did his Chi do what he was doing? The Supreme Being should ask him this question. I'm sure the Supreme Being will ask him that question. Are you sure? Are you sure you did all you were supposed to do for this your host before coming to me? Honestly, it was quite a sad story. An orchestra of minorities means a kind of unanimous wailing and crying by the hopeless, defenseless people when circumstances beyond them befalls them, which they cannot help that circumstance, so they just end up crying out in unison. In this book, an orchestra of minorities is likened to the fowls and chickens that when a hawk carries off a little chick, they cannot fly above, like fly up to the hawk, and they can't do any other thing other than to wail and cry all together. Chigozie Obioma designed this story to showcase how the marginalized and downtrodden of the society cannot help their circumstances. The only thing they can do is to complain, is to lament, is to wail, and more often than not, the people that cause their problems do not care. They don't give a damn about them. So the only thing they can do is just to cry out. An Orchestra of Minorities. The book is said to be a twist of the Homer's Odyssey, originally a poem that has been adapted into prose and movie forms alike. Fun fact, I read this book like 3 months ago, but it was only today, as I was preparing this review, that I understood how this book is a twist to the Homer's Odyssey. This is where I'll bring it to an end of this very interesting book, An Orchestra of Minorities by Chigozie Obioma. It's a unique one, different from the regular read, narrated by a different being, showcasing culture, society, the grimness of societal stratification, and what can become of someone when stretched to their elastic limit. All right, amigos, until next time, thank you for staying with me. See you next time. Bye.